Amazing to see. I came here when the thing was completely empty, and it makes quite a difference. With the little lights are on, and even there's one cable almost crossing my head in the screen. Yeah. Anyway, when I was listening to the first speakers, I had this aspect of drawing. I didn't really make a presentation on drawing, but that we don't sketch anymore. These architects, we hardly, this kind of art, the noble art of sketching is more or less lost. When we are asked about it, we say that we are our office is like, can be described as generation 1.0, because we started from day one in all its kind of simplicity to try to work with computers while we were trained with pencil. And the offices before us, they were already, they had to make a sort of painful transition where they were working on drawing tables, and more computers came in. And the offices after us, they were already trained during their studies with computers. So we were in this kind of in-between stage, and it was an interesting moment. But when we talk about a sketch, we think not so much as a drawing, but more as a model. So we do sketch, but then there are like scrappy models with that look, that have indeed the look and the kind of feel of a sketch in pencil, but then in the three-dimensional form. Next to kind of perfect computer drawings, we like to make this kind of humble, scrappy models. And and I was wondering, maybe the next level is when all these 3D printers become so much more available, then probably sketch models will also disappear. Or not. Maybe that's more or less an observation. What is the next step? Then we only have, what does a sketch then mean? Anyway, I came from Ahmedabad this morning, and we missed each other, Mahul and me, at the Archipri event at Sept. Many architects, recent graduates were there. Indeed, a lot of architectural drawings. But it was also an amazing atmosphere to see people from all over the world coming together, meeting and having a workshop. So it becomes a kind of international network, and architecture is becoming more and more international. Also because the digital tools that we have, we can work on different places in the world more easily. That's also what happened to us. We started in the Holland, and then after a couple of years, more and more projects came from other places. And I have to say that I enjoy that. And on the one hand, architecture is very local. You need to make it on a certain spot, and it has to work for people from that spot. But on the other hand, it's also very exciting to bring something from outside and to see how you can deliver something new. We also went to India a couple of years ago, and in the meantime, first results are coming out of the ground. And my last trip to India was a few months ago, and then I attended a wedding. Indian wedding was, of course, something exciting for me to see. Totally different than a Dutch wedding, so to say. But what was very nice as well was that Indian wedding was taking place at the construction site of our building in Pune. And even though the building was not finished, the bride selected the building site as a backdrop for her most important day of her life. And I felt really moved by that. And I said, wow, that's pretty, it's kind of a sign of approval, you could say, that when people do that and choose a building that you have designed as the place for the ceremony. Anyway, the building was lit beautifully, and it was in a way sort of almost like a theater stage. There was a temple. Okay, you all know that. But when I came back and I showed the pictures, everybody was so excited, and we realized, hey, there has been more of these events in the past, and we had indeed some other buildings in Holland as well, where people decided to wed and to have their party. In this case, a library near Rotterdam, where two lesbian librarians decided to step in the marriage cage, so to say, and took pictures from places that were not meant as wedding pictures for these events. That is intriguing to see that things are always different then you can imagine. So you're making design, and one day or another, things will always be slightly not as you expect them to be. So that's I think it's also quite exciting. You try to think this will happen, and it happens differently. Like in Rotterdam as well, the Market Hall, well-known building, is also used for this kind of events. And also more and more, this is a beautiful picture we found of a Chinese couple. They're actually floating above the ground, and the photographer took that picture when they jumped in the air. Okay, well, back to Pune. I'd like to explain a little bit why we're working in India and how that happened. It was not a plan. It was not the big picture. But there is a certain fascination what is happening, because there's so much, let's say, massive construction taking place in Asia, also here in India, and that a lot of these projects, you don't really know them, because nobody is publishing them. They like to publish nice little luxury houses or beautiful things, interiors. So architectural magazines are not showing these kind of things. So in a way we thought it would be our message or our aim to try to make buildings of 100,000 square meters that will be published somehow, that this scale needs more love, so to say, and more attention. Because a lot of these square meters, this in quantity, all these projects are, that's much bigger than all these tiny villas. So in a way, these buildings don't need architects anymore. People commission builders, constructors, and they repeat this kind of standard plans, and the architect, they're just doing nice little things. So when we started to come over to India, we also wanted to go to these places and look around. How does it work, and what do they look like, and what do the plans look like? Because we have different plans. We have. You see that they're more inside out. You design more inside out here. You have your perfect layout of the rooms, and then it doesn't matter that you have like 3 times more facade length than we have, because that you don't need to insulate it or so. Whereas in our case, we make kind of sort of efficient boxes with a little bit of facade, and then we fill in the apartments inside these volumes that are based by the urban planner. Whereas in an Asian context, it's a complete different setting, and it has also an effect, of course, on the layout of apartments. So we had to learn from that, so to say. We made some mistakes, but then it's also important to make mistakes to find out where it's going. So our first project was not successful, but after a while we were asked for a kind of quick competition for a very large project in Pune, in a township. And when I heard about a township, I was thinking about South Africa. Do we have a project to make in a township? No, it's an Indian township. It's different. And it's basically a whole city. We also do these kind of things in a slightly different scale in Holland. But in Pune, it was a complete functioning city with its own power system and own fire brigade, a hospital, everything is in there. You don't need, it's kind of plugged in the system of the urban center, but then it can also function more or less independently. And you live there in a bubble, basically. That's like the Truman Show. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's a bit like this. It's a perfect life, but you're not really in the city. But on the other hand, when you think about, you have to drive every morning to your work, or you have to bring the kids to school, it is also not really working in certain places. So then you can imagine that it is actually very successful to offer an alternative to that. So this was our client, Mr. Deshpande, who was making Amanora Town for a long period, and it's kind of his life project. And I also appreciate how he's doing that by making a nice park and a beautiful public space before the buildings are coming, instead of the other way around. So there was already a lot going on there, and then the main spine, the high density spine, was a competition, and they asked some people from outside India as well. And to our surprise, we hit the right spot, so to say. At first, it was to give you a little bit of an outline. It was a lot of square meters in a rather complicated or a tight spot. Can be 100 meters high. The density is 9, so that's a lot of square meters per square meter, so to say. So when you make it into the standard tower typology, you have around 80 towers, and that didn't really make us happy, so to say. You could also make it into a wall, but that was also not so promising. So we fiddled around. Actually, these drawings were made afterwards. We actually made sketch models to test how it looked like. And out of these models, we found a solution where we wanted to have more, let's say, a more dynamic skyline. It could also be like a miniature, let's say, downtown of this township. And it became more mountainous, so to say. And then from our analysis of, let's say, the hardcore drawing, the computer drawing, and the regulations, we found the solution for the problem in the hexagonal grid that's based on the fire distances for escape lengths. So yeah, you have to escape in two directions. If you put these cores 60 meters apart from each other, that's the maximum length between them. So we were not thinking in towers, we were thinking in slabs and I think to reduce the amount of cores, to have basically more efficient solution. But also creating views for as many people. So out of this, we try to look for the apartments and to find out where all the rooms fit. In a non-Indian way, so to say, with our European background, not with a facade that does this, with a facade that's more smooth. And steadily we kind of came into a kind of grid in which we could plug in any apartment. So you had small, bigger ones, super big ones. And I had never heard about 1 BHK, but now I know that. 3 BHK, and also everybody knows immediately what it means here. And of course we had to get used to that. So we made all the colors that stand for a different BHK. And instead of grouping them in one zone by one type and then repeating them vertically, we found a way to be able to place them freely in the building. And so that you can have a floor plan where you would have one BHK and a 6 BHK on the same, in the same corridor, in the same floor plan, and something in between. So you can actually mix and match, so to say. We didn't design all the floor plans, but we gave them the toolbox, our client and the marketing team, to play with that. And they started to figure out the possibilities and say, hey, for this site we like to have that one, and then the whole thing gradually came together. So you can imagine that there were 3 buildings. You could imagine one building with only tiny apartments and one building with big apartments, or you have a version where you have the big apartments on the top and the tiny apartments on the bottom. But of course the nicest one is something in the middle, where you have a kind of mix of different combinations, which is of course very different from other stuff that's being built here. So this maybe was our contribution that we created. So this is the building split over the corridor. One part, the wings of the building are cut, and one part of the corridor is, for instance, the blue one, and the other one is the orange one. So you have literally on the same corridor very different houses, and therefore maybe also very different people, because different BHK sizes probably have different inhabitants. This was a long story, and it took us much longer than expected. So we, let's say, we paid the price for the Indian adventure, but it wasn't. Somehow it was also worth it because it was exciting to see things moving on. Renderings were made, and other renderings were made, and finally things started to become more real. And we started to learn and to find out what the materials can we use. It was all very cheap for us, but on the other hand, there was a lot of freedom as well. We had the big apartments where we have more large terraces on the top of the building, and you have panoramic ones on the sides and more regular ones in the middle. And the website was made, sales event started, all these kind of things that are quite common for every developer and developer project, but they were also slightly different. The design of the building led to 2 types of housing, let's say the regular ones and the kind of roof deck ones. And all apartments were drawn by the marketing team. Our beautiful images were not appreciated because they were not Indian enough, because that would not be understood by the buyers. So therefore the drawings were slightly different, and the renderings had a different color scheme than we would do in our part of the world. They have more browns and beiges. We would have more grays and black and whatever. Would not be handy, they told us, in a nice way. So they gave to some office these renderings, and this happens fine. And the same for the public spaces. There's a couple of voids in the building where we have the collective spaces. There are the sky patios in a way, where different activities can take place. It's like a vertical village in that sense, vertical city. So this was our images, and then we got them back from the Indian market department, where they said, well, we thought about this. And we're very open to collaboration, so you cannot discuss about taste. That's difficult. So yeah, we sort of, okay, fine, we let it happen. So in the end, there will be slightly different than this, with more colors. We said we scrapped all the wood out, and now it will be painted in different colors. But there will be, let's say, slightly exciting, so to say, and it's surprising for the visitors. And that will also change over time. So maybe there will be a new design in 5 years or in 10 years. That's okay. Here you see the park where the building is located in the township. This is some construction pictures. It was exciting to see the difference, of course. We have a different, it will be with more machines and less people. And in Pune it was a lot of workers, a lot of noise, a lot of scary moments for me on the building site. But it was also beautiful to see how things really came together. So here you see that there's a kind of neutral grid of windows and balconies, and then every now and then, almost on every corridor, there is an open space with a view. This is how it looks from the opposite building, and the shape of the building has this hexagon in combination of the angles, which gives very different views from different corners of the site. On the one side is, let's say on the right side, is more or less finished, and on the left side, they're still building on it, and it's also, kind of funny for us to see that people are already living in the building, where that the construction workers are still working on the other side. But that's no problem. So let's see. And it still is not 100% finished, but it will be there in a couple of months, hopefully, and the second stage already designed, which will look slightly different. And that's in a way our first Indian experience. I quickly finish to a second one that's also under construction in Lucknow. I just saw the airport terminal. I visited as well. And we're making a castle built out of simple buildings, simple units, but then combine them in a different way. And in a way that I think what we can offer. We don't have to design the floor plans completely, but we can combine them in an interesting way, creating a courtyard space, which is then a collective space. This is then designed with our friends from Berlin, Topotec, and it will in the end be an orange world. With the simple bricks from the region, and the detail can be not perfect, but as long as the color is okay, I'm happy. Thank you very much.